Friend or foe? All right. Private or public, what do? What's happening to you when you are on social media? Social media is taking over our lives, especially our children and young adults. We must educate ourselves about what social media really is and how it can be used for good and how it also could destroy your lives. So come get some, you're about to get some very important news and information, so get your questions in the chat. Have your questions ready about social media so that we can learn everything we need to know so we can speak in a way that honors the Lord and that you won't be embarrassed or have to regret later on when you speak it out there and put it in social media. You know, it's called the wide world because it goes all over the world. Whatever you say, every picture you put on there. So without further ado, I think everybody's gone to their sessions. You can move your chair closer if you'd like to. Just keep your same seat so we can keep our sanitation going. So I present to you, why don't you help me welcome this young lady. She is a counselor in Aldine. She's a counselor in Aldine. She is a wife and a mommy and a wonderful, beautiful lady with a beautiful spirit. So I want you to help me welcome Tracy Walker to our what is it called? Main stage. All right. It's a long day. Come on, clap for Tracy. We have mic check here on the stage.
All right, greetings everyone, greetings. We're going to go ahead and get started. I have a PowerPoint presentation that I want to share with you. But one of the reasons that this is such a passion of mine, social media, I love social media. Right before the pandemic, we were using it, but it went on steroids once the pandemic hit because as a counselor, I had to figure out how do I reach out to my students and make sure that I'm still connecting with them. So I got with my counseling team and we created virtual offices. We did Twitter, we did Facebook Live, we made videos. So we used social media to our advantage and we were able to stay in contact with our students. But if we're not careful, social media can be a major culprit. So how many of you have Facebook? How many of you have Twitter? What about Instagram? Have a couple, okay. What about LinkedIn? Any LinkedIn people?
Okay. That's how many people use it because we got it.
You got them, okay, all right. Well, we're gonna talk about that in just a moment. So we're gonna go to the first slide. And kind of talk about the social media timeline. And before I do that, I want to ask y'all this. How many of y'all had a chance to go on Evelyn Ogletree's Facebook page and actually see her when they went to Austin Thursday? Y'all actually had a chance. To speak. Yeah, that was great. So if you haven't had a chance to look at it, you need to go on her page and look. They interviewed her. Was it on Channel 13?
Yes.
Yeah, it was on Channel 13 and interviewed her. And that was a fiery interview. It was good. It was good. So I want to walk you through what's the next one that says social media timeline. So how many of y'all know social media has been with us for about 24 years? 24 years. When I was doing my research, I was shocked because I know I've been on Facebook since 2009. But I don't know if y'all remember this thing called MySpace. Anybody have a MySpace page? Yeah. If you go back, it's still there. I looked at mine the other day. Mine is still there. But I want to walk y'all through social media history. So the first social media site was called 6 Degrees that launched in 1997. That's the year I got married, 1997. And 6 Degrees shut down in 2001, so it didn't last that long. And this was under the theory that we all are 6 degrees from knowing this somebody else, don't have mutual friends. Then in 2002, Friendster launches, and Friendster was a lot like Facebook. You had contacts, y'all communicated, but it wasn't where everybody else could see it. 2002, and I didn't know this, LinkedIn actually came along before Facebook. And I didn't realize that until I was doing my research. So 2002, LinkedIn, and that is the social media site where you can actually start making those professional connections, where you're putting your resume, you're applying for jobs. I have had friends that actually got jobs through LinkedIn. So that came along in 2002. Also in 2002 was MySpace. And that one, you put your videos and your pictures, you put your favorite song. That was kind of how MySpace worked. 2004 is when Facebook came along. And I didn't realize Facebook had been at it this long, because like I said, I didn't even get on Facebook until 2009. Twitter launched in 2006. So Twitter. How many of y'all have Twitter accounts? Okay. How many of y'all use them? Not too many. How many of y'all, so when you set them up, how long has it been since you've used it? Just on average, how long has it been? Months. Okay, so based on the surveys that I've had, more people use Facebook than Twitter. Would you say that most people use Facebook? Okay, so in 2007, MySpace becomes the most visited site in the world. 2008, Facebook moves into that, and Facebook becomes the most visited site in the world. 2010, we have Instagram is introduced to us. 2011, Snapchat. How many of you have a Snapchat account? A lot of young people like it. I personally don't use it that often. I don't really understand it, so I don't use it. But a lot of younger people use it. And then 2015, Friendster, which very few people use that app actually went away. Nobody, that application was dissolved. So Friendster went away. All right, next slide.
There's a delay.
All right, so Facebook. Just to give you some perspective on how many people are using Facebook and why it's going to be so important on how we use it. 1.5 billion with a B, billion people actively use Facebook every month. I'm going to repeat that. 1.5 billion people actively use Facebook every month. Twitter. 320 million people actively use Twitter every month. Instagram, 400 million monthly active users for Instagram. So that's a lot of people using social media. So when you're using Facebook or different social media platforms, they collect a lot of information about you. They look at what you're posting, your friends, your friend groups, your location, your interests, your events, your photos, how many likes you have. So everything you're doing, they're taking that information in and they're using it. Information Facebook does not collect about you. Notice on the other side, there's nothing that they don't collect about you. Everything you're doing, they're keeping a record of it. That's why when you start looking or Google something and then later on in your Facebook feed, you'll see it. They're collecting all that information about you. With that being said, your reputation on social media is very important. That's what we're talking about. When you're on social media, there are some very important pointers I want you to think about. And I'm going to use the acronym THINK. Before you post anything, T, is it true? H, is it hurtful? I, is it illegal? N, is it necessary? And K, is it kind? Think. Those are the things I want you to think about. Speak from the heart. Before you post anything, think. So what are some of the traps of social media? Mental health and body image trap. Social media may promote negative experiences such as inadequacies about your life or your appearance, fear of missing out, depression and anxiety, and self-absorption. I was in the car the other day. I looked over driving down the street. This girl is driving and she's doing selfies while she's driving. That's how absorbed we are with, or just, inundated with social media. I see people posting and selfies all the time. Self-absorption, sharing endless selfies and all your innermost thoughts on social media can create an unhealthy self-centeredness and distance you from real life connections. And I was looking at some of the stats on self-image. It says 87%. If it's found that 87% of women and 65% of men compare their bodies to images they consume on social media and traditional media. So based on what we're seeing online, now we're comparing ourselves to what we see online. The scripture that God gave me for that is, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. That's Psalms 139:14. So however God made you, be happy with that. But social media has put us in a totally different light of feeling like we have to compare what we look like to what somebody else looks like. This is a good one, the trap of secrecy. Inappropriate conversations typically turn into inappropriate relationships. Your friendship should not be a secret to your spouse. If you are sneaking or hiding, it's inappropriate, period. If it feels wrong, it is wrong. So this is how it normally works out on social media. This is how affairs start. So you get a friend request, there's this light conversation, how are you? And then it moves to flirting. Oh, I like your picture. So they hit you, send you a like. Now they're asking you what you're wearing. Then it moves from what you're wearing to, I think I'm falling for you. And then you say, well, I'm married. And you say, well, are you happy married? So then it moves from that to, okay, well, let's meet up and talk about it. All of this stems from a friend request and some light conversation. Over 41% of people who got caught cheating said their actions online led to them being caught. But I repeat that statistic. 41% of people who got caught cheating said their actions online led to them being caught. Over 20% of all divorces are the result of online relationships. So there's some damage that's being done online. This is the big one, the next trap. The trap of covetousness. Some people are merely online on social media for no other reason than to hunt and search and look at other people's lives, desiring somebody else's life. I call them virtual stalkers. They're not going to ever put anything on there. They're not going to respond to you. They're not going to put anything. They're not going to post anything to you. All they're doing is looking. They're just looking to see what you're doing. I call it the reality show lifestyle. They want to see what everybody else is doing. This quote I came across the other day was just powerful. It says, don't compare your reality to somebody else's highlight reel. Nobody's going to post all the bad stuff going on. You're going to see all the good stuff. Nobody's gonna post, I couldn't get rent paid this month. You rarely see that. Just some of the highlights I think of coveting things is, I wish, you might see something like, I wish my husband loved me like her husband loves her. Do we really know what's going on in their homes? Wow, this person got more likes than I did. Or you might have a single person who says, as a single, married life is so much fun, but they don't know the work that you have to put in to be married. I've been married 24 years, and you can look and say, oh, they look so, but you don't know what happened for us to get to 24 years. So, this is another good one, the trap of venting. We might be here for a moment because a lot of people get on social media and they just vent. And I'm like, why don't you go to the person that you're upset with and have that conversation with them? So we have venting on social media, it can actually exacerbate the situation. Yes. It can make it worse.
Oh, yes.
It can be embarrassing. You might be sharing something that maybe that should have stayed between you and puppy.
That's right. Come on.
Another thing is, it cannot be retracted. Once it's out there, it's out there. Proverbs 29:11 says, fools vent their anger, but the wise quietly hold it back.
All right.
One of the things I always suggest to my students, because I get a lot of students come in, and the whole thing is he said, she said, based on some social media stuff. It's okay. Well, if you just got it in and you got it on social media, why don't you set your settings where you're venting to only to you when you can see it? So there's a way on Facebook where you see that at the bottom where it says only me. You can put it on there. I have never shot that video. That's fine. Everybody don't care. I don't really want to know that, but you can post it to yourself. No, that sounds ridiculous, but you just gotta put it out there. Post it to yourself.
Okay.
If I'm mad at Mike, I'm not gonna do that. I don't post that stuff on there. I can post it to myself. I'm mad at my husband. But it's not a good idea to do that because you can't take it back. This is another good one. The trap of excessive time on social media.
Come on now.
Limit your internet use. Social media can steal your time. And beware of the analytics and algorithms. And then, earlier I talked about how when you look at, when you're Googling things, and then when you go to social media, you say, I didn't know I was going to Macy's. Why these red bottoms keep popping up? Because that's what you do. So they use algorithms. They use what you're doing. I didn't even use what we're saying. And before you know it, it's in our news, it's in our feed, it's in our Twitter, it's in our Facebook, it's in our Instagram, things that you're looking up. So just know that it's not just by accident that this stuff is popping up. There's a system in place. I think my husband mentioned he has a fraternity brother. That's his whole job. They look at your patterns of what you're doing all day, and they shoot it to you to make sure that you stay engaged and it consumes your time. It really does. So I'm just going to read off some interesting statistics in just a moment, just to let you know how it can consume your time. It says some teenagers check their social media over 100 times a day.
Oh my goodness, I believe it.
9 hours a day. See, she's laughing because how many of you, if you left your phone at home, you're going to go back and get it? Yes. Yep. You're going to go back home. You're going to go back home and get it. Teenagers, 9 hours a day, 100 times. And y'all, this was done in 2000. Statistic was CNN 2019 before the pandemic. So imagine what it is now. The average American spends 3.5 hours a day on social media. And again, this was done before the pandemic, so it's probably double that now. What you're telling your significant other when you're always on social media I'm sorry, honey, but social media is more important than you. I gotta go and do this. That's why our divorce rates went up even higher during the pandemic because more people were spending more time, not with their significant other. Their significant other has become their social media.
Wow.
So now you're cheating with Facebook. So look, compare 2012 to 2019, the average minutes per day on social media. We went from 90 minutes to a little over almost 3 hours. So that's how much of an impact it's had on us. So Ephesians 5 and 16 says, making the best use of our time because the days are evil.
Yes.
So it is important. Social media is good, but it's consuming too much of our time. It's taking up a lot of idle time. Just some of the negative social media publicity. Just talk a little bit about that. There was a football player, Rashard Mendenhall, former football player, and I'm going to say that again, former football player. He didn't play very long, but he posted a few things on social media, on Twitter. During the Obama administration, Osama bin Laden was captured. And everybody was excited about that, and they were ready to kill him. And he posted, "Why do you want to kill this man?" That was his Twitter. "Why do y'all want to kill him? Why are y'all excited about killing him?" Then he went on to say, "Well, the NFL is parallel to slavery." Next, he talked about when those planes hit the towers in New York, that it was a theory. How could planes take down such strong towers? That had to have been some type of theory. Shortly after his career ended. Shortly after. So that's just how, his popularity went down after posting those type of things. Colin Kaepernick took a major stand and he kneeled during the national anthem and protest. He was actually the face of Nike. People started posting things about what he was doing, and he all of a sudden became not the face of Nike. So that's just the power of social media. There was a company during National Women's International Day. Miele was the name of the company. They have appliances. And what they did was they wanted to celebrate National Women's Day. And I don't know if we can get this picture up because y'all got to see this. But the way they decided to honor National Women's Day, they had a group of women on some appliances, a washer and a dryer. And they said, "May all women always remember to embrace what makes them unique. Happy International Women's Day." So instead of them putting something on there that may have been positive, they put a picture of women on a washer and a dryer. So how do you think that went? Well, within hours that was deleted, and they issued an apology. And from my understanding, the sales of that company has decreased. So social media has a major impact on what we do and how we do it and what happens. Another social media situation was the customer at Starbucks had a bad experience with the barista. They were making the coffee, he had an altercation. A customer nearby was videotaping it, and the barista was yelling at the customer. This was at a Starbucks. So this went viral. Within 48 hours, they had 5.2 million people looking at this video. And I don't know if y'all remember this, but shortly after, the next couple days, Starbucks shut down the stores and had to do trainings on race relations because they had 5.2 million people that were watching, that viewers that saw it happen. That's the power of our social media. There was another company that was, I think it was The Gap. They had a picture of an African American boy, and he had a hoodie on. The hoodie said, "Coolest monkey in the jungle." I don't know if y'all can see it at the bottom. Coolest monkey within 7 hours, 18,000 viewers. It was quickly deleted, and they issued an apology. And based on what the statistics, the sales of the store went down tremendously. So just the power of people posting and how negative information can move quickly through. So this next part, I just want to get kind of your feedback. The role of George Floyd, the role of social media when we were looking at George Floyd. Many of us had an opportunity to watch the video. I don't know about you, but when I saw that video, I had chills, I cried. Based on what you saw, or based on what you know, what you think, what impact did social media, do you think social media had on George Floyd, the George Floyd case and the verdict? Any volunteers? What impact do you think social media did it have any impact? How do you think it had an impact?
Check. No, I just said that it was videotaped by a young student, and that was 100% of the case. It was there. I mean, you couldn't dispute it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think it gave a lot of people a perspective, especially African Americans, on how the world is trying to bring us back to the 1960s. Instead of us now, and this is happened last year, 2020, look where we at. We're in the 20s. People are still thinking that way, allowing things to happen as if we're back in the 60s. And they're not understanding, first of all, there is a spiritual perspective of it, that what you do, like you say, social media, people think what they do, they can get away with it, but don't get caught until they see this. And back in the day, they didn't have social media, they didn't have the videos. Now they have it, so they don't think until after it's being shown. But they still don't understand the perspective of it, and that we are as equal as they are, and they don't feel that.
That's true. That's true. Anybody else?
I was gonna say that, in a time, it was in the middle of the pandemic, and so in a time where everybody was at home and all we were doing was just sitting on our phones, sitting on watching TV, it really highlighted it. I feel like it kind of carried the movement behind it and the case later on, because it was everywhere. Because if you think about it, we've had videos of police brutality before. But life kept going on, it came across your feed for a few days, then it left. But since everybody was on pause, it was all over social media for months. So I think it really carried it, and then it exploited it in some ways, because you have people adding their opinions to the case.
Yes, anybody? Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I think social media put the case on the world stage. It was no longer just the United States. With social media, it went global. And therefore, with it being global, the U.S. was not in a position to where they can suppress information. So I think it definitely helped the case, but I think it also put the United States on the world stage.
Amen. I believe that too. This lady always says, for such a time as this was God. It's like God orchestrated a pandemic. We're going to shut you down, and then we're going to showcase. We're going to showcase this racism that has been going on, but I really want to put it on stage now. And y'all, the world stopped so that we could acknowledge what happened. And social media played an integral part in this. So it's sad that he had to sacrifice his life for this to happen, but this world, the laws are going to change as a result of what we experienced, what we saw with George Floyd. So in this case, social media did us a great justice. And I'm really, really proud of that. Some of the other things I wanted to talk about was just the joys of social media, because that was being able to showcase this across the world was sad, but it also allowed us to see the power of social media and the power of us sticking together and making this a major movement. Some of the joys of social media, and I'm having to skip around a little bit. If I have time, I'll try to go back to some of the other slides. Because we talk a lot about the bad parts of social media, but it's so much good. Being able to share the good news. Y'all, I don't know what I would have done without First Met. Being able to still reach and touch me through Facebook, through social media, knowing that the pastor, Lady O, was still, putting out the word and making sure we were still being spiritually fed. So being able to get the good news, being able to still participate in church, being able to share inspirational thoughts, some of the good things of social media, being able to have happy moments and milestones. My father lives in Dallas, and the way he's had to keep up with his grandson and some of the things that he's doing is through social media. And I'm sure most of you have felt the same way with your children or grandchildren. You've seen so many things that they're doing through social media, so that is a great thing. It gives us quick information, access to information and research. Social media, we're able to get on there, jump on there now, and pay our bills. Yeah, I don't know about y'all, but I got a whole degree online. So social media helps us with learning, getting education, online learning, job skills, content discovery. We did learning, as I told y'all, I'm a counselor by trade. So for a whole 6 months, that's how we communicate with our students online. Great marketing tool. Many companies, is how they make their money online. And great opportunities for remote employment. So there's a lot of advantages to social media. We have to know how to plug in to make it positive. I kind of want to leave you with some of the scriptures because we are constantly being watched. We are Christ's ambassadors. God is making his appeal through us. 2 Corinthians 5:20. What we do, what we post, what we say matters. You and I are a bigger part of a group of people. So when you're posting things, people are watching. We are God's representatives here on earth. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, do not be deceived, by bad company ruins good morals. Romans 12:1-2 says, I appeal to you therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. So we're here in this world, but we're not of this world. So we should be posting what they're posting.
Come on, say that.
We should not be posting what they're posting. Although we want to vent and talk about what Sister so-and-so did, and let me address that. I know we talked about a few minutes ago. I call that the passive aggressive postings. I'm sitting by you, I'm mad at you, but instead of talking to you,
Yeah.
I'm gonna post it. And all you've done is you've made her matter, so it doesn't get resolved. So that's the thing I said. When we do things, people are watching us. Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. In Psalms 11:3-8, blessed is the man who walks in the counsel walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scorners, but he delights himself in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. So God holds us to a high accountability, because we know that we should be posting things that are that will uplift the kingdom. Okay, so it's going to be very important to remember those things. Um, One of the things that I wanted to kind of end with is I had some people reach out and say, well, I talked about social media. What are some things, or, those of you that have teenage children, or maybe younger children that are on social media, what are some things that I can do to kind of monitor, or limit what they're doing? So I posted a couple of things that you can try to kind of, some of the things I put on my son's phone. I don't want to talk too loud so he'll know. But one of them that I use is called Bark, BARK. You're able to look at what social media sites they're on. You're able to look at text messages, and you're able to track their locations. So it's BARK, B as in boy, ARK. And this is just ways to monitor your child's account and limit their use. Another one is called screen time. If you have an iPhone, in your settings, there's something called screen time. If you go into screen time in their phones, you can actually limit the websites that they're using, and also you can set times. Like if you want to say from 10 p.m. to 7 in the morning, I want your phone off. You can actually go in and set that timeline in there. Some of us need to put screen time on our phones too. I have it on mine. So when it hits about 10 o'clock, it goes to do not disturb. Also, how many of you have Xfinity internet? You do? Okay. When you get Xfinity, you can actually go in and it shows you all the devices that are connected to your internet. You can actually go in and pause them. So when my son is playing, look at him, he's looking at me. Sometimes he's on Xbox and it stops. Mama paused it. Or if he's on his phone and it's time to shut it down, Mama stopped it. You can actually go in and you can say, at this time I want his phone off. I want this off. I want this to play. I want this. I want all of this off. So you can control what's on your internet if you have it. I don't know if the other ones do that. I'm sure they do. But I know with Xfinity, they offer that feature. And if you are struggling with time, and I know I need to get out here, but I'm struggling with that, put a timer on your phone or on your Xfinity. The other thing is just, there's some people that put themselves on social media punishment. So what they do, they only use social media on weekends. During the week, they might use it to make phone calls, but I'm just not going to do it during the week. I'll do it on weekends only. So you know what your struggles are, so act accordingly. But some people know what they have to do just to keep themselves balanced, because it's easy to get off balance. Yes, ma'am.
know in some cases where some people have been put in all in Facebook jail because of comments.
Facebook jail.
Facebook jail?
Can you talk a little more about that?
There was someone that was talking about Trump, okay? And what happened is they were put in Facebook jail where they couldn't make any comments for a couple of days.
So Facebook.
Yeah.
So she was just saying that they were posting political comments about Trump, and in the actual Facebook blocked the account.
It's like an online suspension.
How long did it last?
This person was 3 days, and they had a second occurrence of the people almost a month. Yeah, because I know someone who theirs was like 3 months. They were putting stuff, derogatory stuff, kind of sexually explicit. And they'll send them an alert, let me know if you continue, we're gonna put you in Facebook jail. So, like you said, about 2 or 3 days. You do it again, it's even longer. And this person kept doing it. They did it again, and for 3 months, they cannot post. I even saw someone where they stopped their Facebook page, and they made another one. And then they actually know who it was, and they told them, if you continue on here, we're going to block you again.
Wow, so you go to Facebook jail. I didn't know that. Yeah, any of y'all been in Facebook? Oh, God, don't go to Facebook jail. Wow. I hadn't heard that. So, what I'd like to do, I like to end, and I want to just, there's a survey that I want to see if I can have you complete, just to kind of get an idea of how you use social media. If you have an iPhone, this might be real simple. You just open up your camera and you look at the QR code. I think it's the one before this one. Okay. So it'll pop up in just a moment. So if you have an iPhone, you'll just hit your camera and you'll just point and then it'll come up. Androids, I think you have to download the QR code reader from your Google Play Store. You can try it, but I think you have to download a QR code. So if you're able to, just for a second, I want to see if you can complete this survey. We have this joke in my house. My son and I have the iPhone, so we always talk about the joys of having an iPhone. I think it's about 3 or 4 questions. If you'll just answer those questions. The social media survey.
It comes up, freeonlinesurveys.com.
It's not giving you a survey?
No, it comes up as freeonlinesurveys.com.
Okay. Is it asking, do you see any questions on there or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If you'll just answer those questions for me.
Done.
Immediate take. Do you mind clicking on survey, the link that says survey for me?
Tracy, did you get us the academic week again? That you talked about earlier?
Actually, I have a QR reader, but if you want a copy of the presentation,
Oh, that's it.
that's it right there. And it has all the slides I just went over, it has every single slide on it. I also have my email address and my Twitter handles on there, if you would like to reach out or get more information about social media. The loves and the joys and the traps of social media.
Okay.
Okay.
And then that's there.
I can give it to you again, but I'll get you a copy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, looks like so far we have 7 responses. I use social media daily, so most of us do. Can we scroll up a little bit to number 2? I use or view social media at least 3 times per day. And then the other one is I post at least 1 time per day on social media. I post at least 1 time on social media per day. So 17% of us do at least 3 times per day. But most of us use it at least 3 times. So we're using it. So, y'all, thank you for your time, and please reach out if you would like a copy of the presentation. Please click on the QR code.